have the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, ready to talk to us this morning about cancer and a lot of other things.
Yes.
Health Secretary, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Peter Mandelson, you worked with him, you campaigned with him. Now that we know what we know, he regrets being associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you regret being associated now with Peter Mandelson?
Yes, what we've seen in the last few days with the release of the latest tranche of Epstein files is a terrible betrayal. It's a betrayal of two prime ministers who were badly let down by Peter Mandelson. It's a terrible betrayal of our country and its national interest, with the leaking of highly sensitive, in some cases market-sensitive information to outsiders. But fundamentally, it's a betrayal of our values as well. Public service is meant to be precisely that, public service, not self-service. And what lots of us have struggled with for some time since the previous release of Epstein documents is how, given Epstein's conviction, he continued to be associated with someone who was a convicted paedophile. I don't think it gets more serious than that. And quite rightly, there is now a focus on his conduct as a government minister and what he was sharing with whom, when, and with what consequences. But in all of this, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the biggest victims in all of this, and the people who have the right to be most angry, are Epstein's victims, those women and girls who were not believed by people in positions of power and authority who badly let them down. And so we all feel this deep anger at his conduct and how badly he has let all of us down and let the country down.
Wes, I mean, obviously, yes, we all think of the victims all the time. We do hear a lot from politicians from all parties about our thoughts are with the victims. Of course, our thoughts are with the victims. You almost don't need to say that. But it was common knowledge that Epstein was still friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He stayed in his flat in 2009, which was a year after Epstein was convicted. Yet only last September, you personally were defending him.
Well, I don't think it was common knowledge. And when Peter Mandelson was appointed as the US ambassador, there was a vetting process and he was asked questions about the Epstein relationship. And I do not believe for a second that in that process he could have shared all of the information that's since come to light, because if he had have done, he would never been appointed. And how do I know that for certain? Because the moment details began to emerge, his feet didn't touch the ground, because the Prime Minister phoned him, had him phoned in the middle of the night and recalled to London and sacked as our ambassador. So be in no doubt about how seriously the Prime Minister has taken this and how badly let down he feels, just as I'm in no doubt, given what he said publicly and the action he's urged, that Gordon Brown is also furious, because at a time when Gordon Brown and Alistair Darling were working around the clock to get this country and get the world through the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, a member of their own team was forwarding internal discussions, extremely sensitive information, market-sensitive information, to Jeffrey Epstein. In terms of conduct of government ministers, it doesn't get more serious than that. And I'm obviously not going to comment on a live police investigation. But what I will say as a serving cabinet minister is I don't need a copy of the Ministerial Code in front of me, and I don't need a copy of the law of the land in front of me to know that what Peter Mandelson did was outrageous in terms of his conduct and judgment, and that is why he absolutely must be held to account.
Yes, of
and
course,
face
Wes.
all of the penalties necessary
Wes,
for this kind of action.
I don't think we have a single viewer disagreeing with you on this, but Gordon Brown was raising issues back in September last year about Peter Mandelson and his past behaviour with Epstein. Now, the thing is, it's like we have to And civil servants are saying, by the way, that it was common knowledge that Epstein and Mandelson were still in touch and staying at the apartment. So that was common knowledge. Everybody knows that. So the fact that the government doesn't know that is interesting at the very least. I have to say, and I put it to you, that there is a serious lack of judgment in your government. And yes, this is now a criminal investigation. Many, many people are saying this could bring your government down. What would you say to that?
Well, I'd say two things. Firstly, in relation to Peter Mandelson's appointment as our ambassador in Washington, bear in mind that he was appointed on the basis that he had been a senior government minister responsible for business. He'd been a European Trade Commissioner and had that considerable experience to bring to bear at a time when the US relationship has been particularly important for our country. And it was on the basis of those qualifications and on the basis of a vetting process that is involved in such an appointment that he was given the job. But the moment the Prime Minister was made aware of the release of the last tranche of Epstein documents, and the moment the Prime Minister was clear in his own mind that he had not been given the full picture, he sacked Peter Mandelson immediately. That does tell you something about the Prime Minister's judgment, about the Prime Minister's approach to ethics and integrity in public office. And the fact is that, you know, his ministers now are subject to the strictest rules and enforcement under the Ministerial Code, because the moment Keir Starmer came into office, he tightened those rules. So be in no doubt that one of the country's most senior prosecutors, who is now Prime Minister, takes standards and ethics and integrity extremely seriously. That is why he sacked Mandelson without hesitation.
Sorry to interrupt.
There's nothing more important than keeping you and your loved ones safe online. With so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. And with their Valentine's Day sale, this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GBNews viewers. It's the easiest way to stay safe online, protect your money, and save big for less than £2 a month. Click the link in the video's description or scan the QR code today.
You keep talking about standards and ethics, absolutely 100%. But Peter Mandelson had been asked to resign twice before, so you have to question his character from some of his previous behaviour. Your very own civil servants say it was in the government's domain, the behaviour of Peter Mandelson with Jeffrey Epstein, including staying in that flat. So now there is a criminal investigation where documents and emails and messages will be handed over. You worked very closely with Mandelson. You will have messages, you will have emails. Will you be handing all the communications you had with Epstein over? With Mandelson over?
Well, the Prime Minister's expectation is to go for maximum transparency. Of course, in terms of a police investigation,
so everyone
who is asked by the police will give full cooperation. But secondly, what the Prime Minister is choosing to do is to also go for maximum possible transparency in terms of Peter Mandelson's appointment as US Ambassador and that process, and also his conduct as Ambassador too, where the only exceptions to that are where there is information that could either compromise national security or compromise international relations, which I think people will understand is the right line to draw. But of course, we're going for maximum transparency here. That is the right thing to do.
So you will be happy. That's a yes. You will be happy to hand over all your communications with Peter Mandelson.
Yep. I was not involved in his appointment as ambassador, but to be clear, and I want to be completely clear about this, I've certainly had no conversation or communication with him whatsoever since he was sacked as US ambassador.
But Health Secretary, he was a man that came with a reputation, some good, some bad, with it. What have you learned about him as an individual? What have you learned about human nature? What have you learned from this that you would take away personally about Mandelson?
Look, first and foremost, at the heart of where the Epstein scandal has been so horrific, actually, to follow and to read, is that women and girls who were trafficked, and exploited and abused were then not believed when they had the courage, and it does require the most extraordinary amount of courage to come forward. That is the first thing, that we have to take victims seriously and believe them. Secondly, we've got to be careful about those who seek proximity to power. And it's clear that Epstein was cultivating, when you look at his contacts book and look at the visitors to his island, he was clearly seeking proximity to people in power right across the world. And thirdly, that proximity to power can sometimes shield people and mean that they are not subject to the same standards and the same scrutiny as others. And that is something that we all need to take extremely seriously.
Actually, can I just ask one very quick question, Wes? Yesterday we had your colleague Karen Smith on, and we asked her about the horrific murder of Rhiannon White by an illegal boat migrant. She claimed to know nothing about the case and said it would be looked into. We are 24 hours on now. Is that happening?
Yes, and absolutely. If Karen said that, then that's absolutely the case.
Okay. Health Secretary, just a bit embarrassed that we talk so much about Peter Mandelson and not really what you should be talking about. You're very impressed with cancer results within the NHS. I mean, briefly, can you tell me why and where things are progressing to on that front?
Yeah, as you say, Eamon, it's very frustrating, but that's not your fault, I'm afraid. Yes, I'm really proud to be launching the National Cancer Plan today, and to be honest, grateful you've asked any questions about it, because this is a game-changing for this country, and as I know myself as a cancer survivor, as it stands right now, there is a lottery in cancer survival, and if you live in this country, you're more likely to lose that lottery compared to living in other European countries. And that's a disgrace. And that's why through our National Cancer Plan, we are, from the point of prevention and diagnosis on one hand, through to treatment, survival, rehabilitation, we are shifting the dial over the next decade to such an extent that by 2035, 3/4 of all cancer patients should survive or be living well after 5 years with cancer. And that is because we're investing massively in diagnostic technology. Over £2 billion worth of investment. We'll see an extra 9.5 million diagnostic tests and scans by the end of this Parliament. By the end of this Parliament, we should also be hitting the cancer standards, whether that's being diagnosed or given the all clear within 28 days, or starting your treatment from referral within 62 days. Now, we're not off to a bad start as a government on that. We've been meeting the faster diagnosis standard for the first year, but let me tell you, there's still so much more to go, and I'm not going to be satisfied until we're hitting all of those standards. So there's lots to be optimistic about, lots to be confident about, particularly given the world-leading science, and things in the NHS are beginning to move in the right direction. I emphasise the word beginning because, believe me, as someone who's been round the hospitals this winter seeing the trolleys on the corridors, and someone who has to talk to patients who are waiting far too long or are suffering waiting for care, there is still so much more to do.
Well, we know you put a lot of energy into it. Hopefully we'll get to talk more about the success that you're achieving and what you hope to achieve, and good luck with all your work. Health Secretary, we've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time and your honesty this morning. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. A tricky morning to announce the cancer care details, with the front pages full of Jeffrey Epstein.